Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry. Today I'm doing something I couldn't do 3.5 years ago. In fact, I couldn't do it 3 years ago. I'm driving by myself going into town. There's a little story about why that is. I'll tell you more about it. This is my 3rd anniversary surviving a car accident. I was driving home for my birthday, which is February 19th. So it'll be tomorrow. I'm filming this on the 17th. The actual day that accident happened 4 years ago. Now you don't think too much about ordinary everyday life most of the time. Most of the time, life continues. No problem, no hassle, it's all good. Sometimes it doesn't work the way you planned. Friday morning, February 17th, 2017, I woke up in California not feeling very well. I worked with a scientist who was in his 90s, and the unwritten rule for those working with him was to not expose him to any kind of disease that you could avoid. I didn't feel real well, so I decided I'll go ahead and drive home here to Arizona. I figured if I didn't feel well by the time I got to a major turn that I needed to make, I could always turn around and go back to where I was staying. Well, I got to that point and I felt just fine. I drove for 610 miles, no problems. My stomach was a little bit squishy, but I could still drive. Weather was clear, traffic wasn't particularly heavy, and it's a pretty safe drive, or so I thought. Less than 90 miles from home. I was sideswiped by a tractor trailer at 75 miles an hour. And that pushed my car into the median at 75 miles an hour. I can't tell you everything that happened during my trip down the median because I was losing consciousness. I'd come back to just long enough to correct the steering of the car, to try to avoid hitting things, and to stay out of the oncoming lane of traffic. My efforts were successful. I didn't hit anything, and because I was driving a hybrid car that had large batteries in the bottom of the car, I didn't roll the car. But the airbags blew out the windows of the car. You don't think about how much noise airbags deploying in a car can make, but it's quite a bit of noise. My car came to a rest in the sand, and it took me a while to open the door. I checked to make sure that I didn't have any broken bones that I could tell. But by the time I could actually get out of the car, oncoming traffic had stopped to check to see if I was okay. Thankfully, eventually the tractor trailer driver stopped his rig and came back to see if I was okay. He appeared to be really shaken. His comment was, "I thought you were dead." What happened is he swerved to avoid some slower traffic in front of him. What he didn't notice at the time was the speed limit changed dramatically. So he changed lanes over the top of me.
You know, that was a lot harder to film than what I expected. Hey, you know, sometimes it's not easy.
Normally talk about these kinds of things on our channel.
Nope. Nope, we're not looking for sympathy. Sometimes we're looking for understanding, but not sympathy. We're not going, and send me money.
Now, I found it very interesting looking back over the past 4 years. I mean, the good thing was that for many years I've thought if I was ever in a car accident, I'm going to make sure that I get a doctor call. I get the emergency crew on site to evaluate me. How did you find this process from the time that I had the accident until I started getting better? Because I didn't start really getting better until, what, maybe a year and a half ago?
Yeah. It was quite challenging because, first of all, you didn't believe there was anything wrong at first.
Yeah, no, I couldn't tell. In fact, I was really so focused on the kind of engineering work I was doing at the time that was all that was consuming my mind.
Mm-hmm. And I knew there was something wrong really quickly.
Well, I actually knew there was something wrong the night that accident happened. In fact, the accident happened exactly 4 years ago, right this instant, strangely enough.
Right, but I knew within 2 days that there was something really wrong. One of the hardest things for me was you had no sense of humor. Zero. I could tell a joke, and that's always been a very, very important part of our relationship, was joking and goofing around and stuff like that. And you didn't even get them most of the time. When we had been seeing a neurologist in Phoenix, and the doctor said, when we tried a medication, he said, could you tell any difference? And I said, I could tell the difference within 48 hours. He had a sense of humor again.
Yeah, it's all the difference in the world. Now, you know, one of the things that made me get focused pretty heavily on getting our channel started, not necessarily as a homestead channel, but in general as a channel, was Jason from Cog Hill Farms. He did a great video about I Can.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna fail. You know what? You dang right.
I contacted him about 3 years ago and asked him for permission to use some snippets from that. So he very graciously said, use anything that you want.
We've watched that video a dozen times, and I cry every time I watch it because it's so for real. It's I failed at this, I went back and did that, and all that kind of stuff. And that's, first of all, that's part of homesteading. Like, if you're going to, whether you're just...
When you live like this, or you have a farm or a homestead, you got to wear a lot of hats.
Whether you're just a gardener in the suburban environment, or whether you're full-fledged homesteader milking your goats and collecting your eggs every day, or whatever the heck you are, anywhere in between, if you can't live with that, you should probably go back to wherever the heck you came from and give it up.
When you live on a rural homestead, you have to be able to deal with not having people around. What's going to happen is when you move from the city to the homestead, you'll see that your circle of friends diminishes. You know, one of the things that I had a hard time accepting was the neurologist's admonition to not get on ladders and do a bunch of other things, because I had a bunch of issues relating to vertigo, and I had some issues with my hearing, and I knew he was telling me the right thing to do, but I absolutely knew it when I fell off a ladder. And
I was so sympathetic you wouldn't believe. It's a wonder he doesn't have a flat spot on his head from a frying pan.
Yeah, so that's why Irene gets on the ladders.
That's right.
So there's a bunch of things like that I've had to accommodate, because it's not my nature to just sit back and let somebody else do. So this has been an interesting day for me, because actually putting together that short introductory piece of me filming myself going into town, you know, for a long while, Irene wouldn't let me go into town driving by myself at all, anywhere.
It wasn't too long after the accident that he almost sideswiped a couple of cars.
It's nice to be semi-normal again.
Yeah, most of the time.
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that happen with people who have head injuries. Traumatic brain injury, which is what I have and what I suffered from and what I'm still dealing with, is a common problem especially for older people, but it happens even for young people.
Boxers, football players, hockey players, a lot of sports people wind up with it. Roll your ATV too many times.
So there are people that you can talk to. There's groups that can help guide you through traumatic brain injury problems. The problem with a traumatic brain injury is that you can't necessarily see it. I didn't break any bones. I herniated the disc very badly, but there was no broken bones. What broke was my brain. And an awful lot of what we've been dealing with for the past 4 years is broken Henry.
Well, once it sounds dumb, but once we were actually able to get to some real doctors, not some of the people that we talked to initially who were like, nothing's broken because there's no broken bones. And they could sit there and they could look at a scan and say, oh yeah, you had a bleed over the optic nerve, that's what's causing the blind spots. Or, oh yeah, I can see this trauma here on the brain, that's what causes this, that, the other thing. You know, or they can do physical tests to check for brain damage. I was watching the doctor and I was watching everything that he was doing, and I have a pretty good sense for what he was testing for in many cases. I watched him snap to attention when you failed that test.
Well, I hope you find some of this interesting. I'm not sure how interesting I find it. It's sometimes frustrating. I know it's frustrating for me. It's frustrating for Irene. We managed to survive it so far.
Yeah, he doesn't have too many flat spots on his head from frying pans. You know.
Yeah, there's no hair left, but there's...
That's just for pulling it out, no?
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because we're going to go back to doing some more things in the greenhouse, some more things outside. We're frozen ground right now. So...
Oh man, we are frozen. And we're obviously not the only people in the United States who are frozen.
We better say goodbye, Irene.
Yes, we should. Goodbye, Irene.
We'll talk with you later. Bye.
Bye.